Yeah, but at the same time, if you go to the next weight class, you are playing with a disadvantage because the guy in the next division is cutting a lot of weight. So if you don't do that, at the end of the day, you walk inside the octagon and you are the smaller guy.
Yeah, like Islam, bound man. It's just so silly. The whole thing is just it's an old thing that we kept for no reason. And I feel like they should blow all the weight classes. I've talked to Dana about this. I actually talked to ARE about this when they first bought the UFC. I said the first thing you should do is get rid of this.
Joe Rogan has launched a scathing critique of the UFC's weight cutting system, labeling it a form of sanctioned cheating that distorts the integrity of weight classes. He acknowledged that it might sound exaggerated to outsiders, but insisted the reality is far from hyperbole. If the extreme dehydration continues for just a few more hours, it could be fatal.
Yeah, man, it's like you really are close to death.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say that, and for someone who doesn't understand what fighters are going through, you'd go, oh, you're being hyperbolic, but not really. Not really. You really are close to death. If you keep going for a few more hours, you'll die.
Yeah.
Echoing Rogan's concerns, Khabib Nurmagomedov reflected on the emotional and physical toll of weight cutting, saying he deeply empathizes with fighters still enduring the process, having experienced it himself numerous times. He recalled his cut before the Justin Gaethje fight as the most difficult, acknowledging that he knew it would be his last and that he could no longer continue competing in the division.
На спину поверните меня. Себя пропускаю все эти эмоции, потому что когда я вижу человека, сколько ему осталось гонять, и то состояние, которое он находится, я через себя это пропускаю. Почему? Потому что я там очень много раз проходил, и я знаю, что человек чувствует.
Мужчина выставил на весах гирьки и сказал,
последнее.
Самое тяжелое.
Она была наполнена с разными эмоциями. Почему? Потому что я для себя знал, окружение же не знало, я для себя знал, что это последняя сгонка. Что я больше не буду в этом весе. И, примерно понимал, что, скорее всего, никогда.
In contrast to Khabib's emotional reflections, Sean O'Malley described the physical nightmare in vivid detail, describing a process that involves sitting in hot water, spending time in a sauna, and then lying down wrapped in towels to sweat out more weight. He called it a bizarre and painful experience that feels like you're dying, with a pounding heart and an overwhelming sense of fear.
Get in a hot bath, fill up that bath, sit in there. We did 10 minutes, sat in the sauna for 10 minutes, and then lay down and get covered with towels and just sweat it out. It's such a weird experience that everyone should do, because you feel like you're dying. You can feel your heart and it kind of hurts, it's pounding, and your head kind of hurts.
Building on this sentiment, Rogan argues that the practice encourages fighters to dangerously manipulate their bodies, cutting extreme amounts of weight to gain an unfair advantage in lower divisions. In Rogan's view, a fighter walking around at 180 pounds has no business competing at featherweight, and the fact that such tactics are normalized within the sport only highlights how broken the system is.
I really wish the UFC would eliminate weight cutting. I really wish there was a way.
Why
it
they
doesn't
allowed
make
to
any
do
sense.
that?
I don't. It's sanctioned cheating that everybody has to do. It's like if you're saying you're 180 pounds, you're not really 145, right? So it's crazy that you're the 145-pound champion, but you're a 180-pound man.
In a similar vein, Israel Adesanya described weight cutting as a deeply intense and almost spiritual experience. He reflected on the physical and mental toll it takes, noting that he's seen fighters behave unusually during the process, saying or doing things out of character. According to him, the extreme state can push someone to the brink, where it feels like you're seeing the light.
When I cut weight, it's a spiritual experience sometimes. It's a weird experience because I've seen fighters who have not get delirious but start saying things that they wouldn't normally say. Not even in a bad way, but just the way they talk.
Because you're close to death.
Yeah, you see the light.
In contrast to Adesanya's view, Ilia Topuria argued that moving up a weight class doesn't solve the problem, since fighters in higher divisions are also cutting heavily. Skipping the weight cut, he said, just means entering the cage as the smaller man and giving up a physical edge in a sport where size still matters.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you go to the next weight class, you are playing with a disadvantage because the guy in the next division is cutting a lot of weight. So if you don't do that, at the end of the day, you walk inside the octagon and you are the smaller guy.
Yeah, like Islam.
Building on the criticism of the current system, Joe Rogan described the UFC's current weight class system as silly and unnecessary, arguing that it needs a complete overhaul. He believes the practice of weight cutting should be abolished entirely, and has even discussed the issue with UFC President Dana White and Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel.
Bound man. It's just so silly. The whole thing is just it's an old thing that we kept for no reason. And I feel like they should blow all the weight classes. I've talked to Dana about this. I actually talked to Ari Emanuel about this when they first bought the UFC. I said the first thing you should do is get rid of this. Get rid of the weight cutting and just add a bunch of weight classes. You know, because some of the weight class gaps, like the gap between 70 and 85 and then 85 and 205, they're too big. The gaps are too big.
Expanding on potential reforms, Topuria proposed changes to the UFC's drug testing system, suggesting that if a fighter is found to be 8 to 10% over their designated weight class after weighing in, they should be required to compete in the next higher weight division.
I would do something with the drug test. Like if I go to your home to make the drug test, I put you in the scale. If you walk around like 8% or 10% over your weight, I would obligate you to go in the next weight class.
Highlighting the disastrous tendencies of weight and emphasizing that it puts fighters at serious risk. Ilya stated, "It is kind of dangerous also for the guys. Many times you put on a show for the people, and you don't really know if they are going to make the weight." Joe expressed concerns that fighters are often physically compromised due to massive dehydration before weigh-ins. He pointed out that even with proper hydration, a fighter's brain may still be dehydrated, which can negatively affect performance. Rogan argued that it's unnecessary and unwise to put fighters in such a compromised state 24 hours before a fight.
And they're going to be compromised. I mean, there's a lot of guys who fight just deeply dehydrated from the day before, and even though they've rehydrated themselves, their brain's not rehydrated yet.
Exactly.
It's not smart, and it's also not necessary. Like, why would it would make for better fights? Why would you want someone to be physically compromised 24 hours before they're fighting? It doesn't make any sense at all.
In addition, Joe criticized the current weigh-in system, highlighting the dangers of extreme weight cuts. He noted that some fighters are drastically reducing weight to make 155 pounds, despite their natural size being more suited for 180 or 190, calling the practice both unsafe and illogical.
I hate weigh-ins. Some guys are cutting extraordinary amounts of weight, and it's very dangerous. Travis Lutter weighed in when he fought Anderson Silva. It was the worst I've ever seen. He was shuffling to the scale. Some of these guys that are 155, like Charles Oliveira, is huge. Like, how are you 155? Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, those guys are big. Those guys are like 190 plus. Alex Pereira, he weighs 185, and you can't believe it for a second. You look at him, you're like, what? This idea that the best way to fight is to cheat and to drain all yourself of fluids and then pretend that you're 160 pounds, then get back on the scale 15 hours later at 185, that's crazy. You're not really a 160-pound fighter. You're a 185-pound fighter who almost died.
In contrast to these concerns, Paddy Pimblett took a starkly different stance on weight cutting, emphasizing that it's more about mental toughness than physical endurance. He dismissed many of the complaints surrounding the process, claiming that a lot of fighters simply can't handle the mental strain, especially when it comes to enduring the heat and discomfort of the bath phase, which he sees as a true test of grit.
When I fought Bobby Green the night before the weigh-in, I was 169.5, so I done 13.5 pound overnight in the bath.
Fuck, how much of a toll does that take on you?
It's one of them. You've got to have the mental fortitude for it. It's more mental than physical. A lot of people are big when it comes to the bath.
On the other hand, Daniel Cormier opened up about the brutal methods he used for weight cutting, revealing that he would layer himself in clothing from head to toe, sit in the sauna, and then immediately walk a mile on the treadmill. He described the process as torturous, noting how his heart would race uncontrollably during the ordeal.
I would go into the sauna with just my stuff, put all my sweet sweat on, get sweating after like 5 minutes, sweat till 10, then start putting all my clothes on in the sauna. So I would have my socks, my shoes, my sweats, my t-shirt, my hat, my plastics, I would put them all on in the same way every time.
Building on this, Cormier highlighted the dangers of modern weight cutting, noting that many fighters go to bed 10 to 11 pounds over their target and wake up as early as 4 or 5 a.m. to finish the cut. He emphasized the lack of sleep due to severe dehydration, adding that even sleeping pills don't help.
Plastic pants, sweatpants, socks, shoes, long sleeve t-shirt under the plastics because I didn't like it against my body, plastic top, sweat top, hat, gloves, and everything just tucked in. And then I would go right out of there because that would take me to like 15 minutes in the sauna. I would walk straight to the treadmill, Joe. Then I'm on the treadmill. I run a mile, but only at 5 because now my heart's doing this because it's hot from the sauna.
Shifting focus to another issue in the UFC, Joe Rogan and Georges St-Pierre clashed over the rule prohibiting downward elbow strikes, with Rogan deeming it among the sport's most nonsensical restrictions. St-Pierre went further, saying if it were up to him, the UFC would allow almost every technique and even scrap-timed rounds altogether, believing uninterrupted fights provide a clearer test of who the better fighter is.
Downward elbows, which is a ridiculous rule.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's the most ridiculous rule out of all the rules?
Would be up to me. I mean, I would allow almost anything, and I would not even make rounds. I think rounds are stupid. You want to see who's the best man? Let them fight, man. Because you see very often that a fight is interrupted by a round, and the momentum shift like 180 degree completely.
Yes.
And it's not fair. It's a fight. Let them fight.
With more fighters speaking out, it's clear the weight cutting debate isn't going away. Whether change comes through regulation or reform, one thing's certain: the cost of staying silent is far too high. Stay tuned for more updates. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more analysis.